AWA is an aviation ministry supporting the Adventist Church, reaching the unreachable of the world. Did you know that there are 2.75 billion people in this world that have never heard of the message of Jesus Christ? Out of that, there are 800 million people that can only be reached by aviation. AWA supports a fleet of 13 aircraft currently, attempting to decrease that number by flying humanitarian aid, medicine and food, supplies, medical workers, construction workers, Bible workers, missionaries throughout the world.
In general, worldwide, yes, mission aviation is still very, very needed. There's so many places that are remote, and it's hard to imagine when we see freeways and internet and all these things, like, why do you need airplanes? Well, there's places in the world that are so remote that they don't have internet, much less, electricity. They have nothing, and so the only way to get to some of these people is if we go to them, and the only way to get to some of these people is by airplane. And so worldwide, aviation is definitely very, very much needed.
Many places in the world, there's so much isolation that to travel on the surface requires many times days or weeks to travel from place to place. Here in Alaska, it's impossible to travel from place to place by walking, and aviation is the only way that the isolated local villages are sustained at all.
AWA continues to build God's kingdom, reaching the unreachable who live with desperation, disease, and death. They're in constant need of help. Hope, health, life, the process of meeting the people's needs, the physical needs, and the proclaiming of the message of hope lays a foundation for the future, indeed all eternity.
Many of the areas we serve to reach the unreached people are physically unreachable. There are vast lands of jungles, mountains, vast Alaskan deserts that you cannot physically reach. It takes weeks or sometimes months to reach people or to deliver missionaries to far inland jungles or mountain areas. If you don't have planes, if you don't have the vehicle of aviation, the gospel message is hindered. But with the airplane, with the Kodiak, with the 182, with the 206, we can reach those people in a much quicker time and get the message of Jesus and His love to people quicker.
There have been over 68 tribal nations that have been impacted. Over 43,000 people reached. More than 5,000 youth have been involved. Over 23 churches and schools have been established or built. Over 35 epidemics have been stopped. In excess of 8 million missionary seat miles have been flown. Well over 2 million pounds of food have been delivered. 2,000 emergency medical evacuation, and it's gone well beyond that now.
In Guyana, it's essential to have mission planes for transportation, because you could just spend days of just getting around before you can even get to a mission site or a crisis point where you're needed. And the airplanes expedite that process entirely and make it possible for us to go places that no one else could go.
The reason aircraft are so vital here, for one thing, where I am right now, the only way I can get here is by boat or airplane. Doing a medical evacuation out of the jungle is important to a person that is ill, and time is of a critical factor.
Getting out here, it's difficult. So when a patient is sick, it's hard for them to get to the hospital unless we fly them out. Also, after they've recovered, it's hard for them to return unless we fly them back in.
Adventist World Aviation meets people's physical needs before they meet their spiritual needs. By doing this, they're more open to the spiritual message of Jesus.
But the airplane has broke down many, many barriers.
The biggest thing that we've seen and that has the most impact on us is the level of trust that people have established, that we've established with them, I guess, or they've come to believe that we will help them and that we're going to be here tomorrow and the next day.
When we reach into people's lives, we see the appreciation.
The goal goals of Adventist World Aviation in any local area that we visit is to eventually deliver the message of Jesus Christ to the unreached people. There's many people in many parts of the world who don't know Jesus, don't know the gospel message and the love of the message. We intend to bring that message to them through aviation.
As a Seventh-day Adventist Christian, we all understand that time is very short. We understand the prophecies, we get all of that we're very close to the second coming of Christ. Yet, when we read publications that are put out by missiologists or those who study missions, we get this conflicting number that even though we're living in the last days, 40% of the world, 35 to 40% of the world is still considered unreached with the gospel message. Of that 40%, we're told that 800 million people live beyond geographic barriers where the only way that they're ever going to hear about the gospel message is if somebody actually goes there to share it with them. They may not have access to electricity, they don't have internet, they don't have phones, they don't have TV. And in some cases they're so difficult to get to that the only way to get there is by aircraft. And that's why aviation is going to play a very important role in reaching the unreached in the last days just before Jesus comes.
Please pray. Will you help us help those whom without aviation ministries could not be reached? Will you help us do even more?
For more information about Adventist World Aviation and ways to get involved, please visit www.flyawa.org.